In this episode, I'm going to show you how I made the McCullough Mausoleum. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Game Terrain Engineering. I'm DM Jim, and in this episode, I am doing another speed build. Now, in earlier episodes, I have done so far 2 speed builds, and they were both for friends. This one is for me, and let me explain. I will be attending Gen Con in Indianapolis. It's the 50th anniversary, and I play a lot of games while I'm there, but one of the games I'm most excited to be playing is a game of Frostgrave. I will be playing with the game's creator, Joe McCullough, and of course 2 friends of mine. We're going to be playing a 2 versus 2 game. Excuse the noise, we're still doing renovations in our house. We're going to be doing a 2v2 game. And Frostgrave, if you're not familiar with it, is it's a war game. It's a skirmish tabletop game. But whereas you might have 100, some games have hundreds of miniatures on the board or 50 or whatever, this one has 10 per player, typically. There are rules that allow you to go beyond 10, but most of the time each player has 10 minis. They have a wizard, an apprentice, and then 8 soldiers. And the soldiers sort of defend the wizard and go fight and things like that. The goal of the game is to pull treasures off of the map. And you throw terrain on the tabletop, and the terrain provides blocking line of sight and things like that, elevation for the bowmen and things like that. But so I will be playing a game with Joe and 2 other friends, and it's sort of because I asked them to play, I sort of feel responsible for creating the game board. And I've got a lot of pieces of terrain that I've made that will be making it, but I needed a centerpiece because the scenario that we're going to be playing is just called the Mausoleum. And in it, you need a square building with 4 doors, one on each side of the building. And at various times in the game, a skeleton, an enemy, will appear at a door randomly. And so it sort of feeds the game field. You're not only are you worrying about your enemies, but you're worrying about these bad skeletons that are appearing. I did not have a suitable mausoleum for the center of the table board, so time to make one. And that's what I'm going to show you in this video. I want to show you how I made this right there. Yes, it has LEDs in it. You can see the greenish glow. It looks really good in the dark. It's got a green dome on top, columns, 4 doors all the way around. Basically, just a typical stone building. But it was really fun to make, and I'm really excited to use it in my game next week. Let's get straight to the video, and I'm going to show you how I made this. If you saw the video where I made the Lonely Tower, it had, I used chipboard, and I cut out and I glued it together and folded it and all that stuff. I'm skipping that step, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go with this little box here. I picked this up at the hobby store, and it has a lid, but I don't even need the lid. This is going to be the basis of my structure. Again, I'm making this up as I go. Typically with my speed builds, it's just, okay, I got to build something. I'll start with a simple structure and then go from there. So for right now, all I have is I need to get this covered in foam. So that'll be the first step, and hopefully that'll buy me a little time to figure out what I'll do maybe with the top or the sides or the doorways and stuff like that. So let's get to the first step, which is cutting all the foam. I have a lot of 1/4-inch scraps lying around the workshop here, which is perfect for this project because this is a very small box that I'm going to cover. The adventure, the Mausoleum for Frostgrave, calls for a 6-inch square structure. This is actually 5 1/4. So I don't think the creator Joe is going to get too upset with me that it's not exactly 6 inches. But I'm going to use, since I'm using this as the interior structure and gluing the foam on, I couldn't find a 6-inch box, so I'm going to have to use this one. So I am going to set my fence for 5 1/4. Right there. Tighten it down. And I'll run a bunch of pieces through just to get them 5 1/4 wide. before I glue them on, I'm going to go ahead and texture them. So that will be the next bit of work. And what I'd like to do on these is I'd like to do a fine brickwork, maybe the 1/2 inch. Let me see. That would give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of bricks. Do I want them at 1/4 inch? That's too small. I'll do them at 1/2 inch. I have cut out the 4 walls and I have put brickwork on them. What I initially planned on doing here was gluing these on like this, and you know, 2 edges would be butted like that. And then I was going to, on my 3D printer, I was going to print out round columns. Just picture a column about 3 inches tall with 1/4 cut out like a pie, and that was going to fit over the, you know, where the 2 walls come together. Here's the problem. Designing that column won't take very long, but 3D printing them, I don't want to, each one would probably take anywhere from half an hour to an hour. I just don't have time for that right now. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these on like this, so they have this 90-degree angle in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a bunch of these 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch rectangles like this. And these are going to be, I'm going to give these a texture like a brickwork, and these will be just glued in there like this. And I'll have a square column instead of a round column. So while I've got this set to 1/2 inch, I'll go ahead and cut a bunch of 1/2 inch pillars. There's a grid on here. It's 1 centimeter. So basically all I've got to do is burn one at the 10 here, like this. See? And then move this little notch to the 10. Do another one. And then the next one. And then the next one. And just keep going like that. I've got the 4 pillars, corner pillars cut, and those I'm going to paint separately. I'll black bomb them and do them up with a stone texture before I glue them in, because it'll be easier to get into the nooks and crannies. If they're glued on here, it's going to be very hard to get into those edges. So next I need to go ahead and glue these on and get them cut perfectly so that I have that angled piece in here. Just a quick update on where I am right now. I went ahead and glued the sides on. As you can see, it's very, very tight to the cardboard. The one thing I didn't show you was after I glued these on, and I should have videotaped this, I took small bits of tape like this, and I just sort of, did like that. And I did about 3 all the way around on each side, and then I also did them down here. So you can see that I've got a very good bond between the foam and the cardboard. And I did that for a number of reasons. One, in the past when I've done this, the cardboard has tend to have like flat spots like that bubble. You could feel like that, you press them and it would give. And then the other reason is they weren't as strong. This thing is super strong. Now that the foam is glued, it's very, very sturdy. So I'm very pleased with that. So let me show you a few things I've done or thought of since then. I'm going to be painting these black along with this. And of course these pieces are going to be glued into the corners here. And I'll cut them flush with the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to come up with some sort of cap for them here. The other thing I've decided on is I was going through my junk drawer and I found this piece of foam, half sphere, and I think I'm going to glue it right here in the center. And then I thought it's kind of plain, so I thought what I'd do is I'd cut some cardboard or paper and do a band over it pointing to the opposite corners. And then I'll paint this one color and then paint the bands maybe a gray or something like that, just to look like the whatever this object is being held in by metal or something. Up next, I've got to cut the piece for the top, put a grid on it, and then glue it down. And after that, I'll be working on the doors. Now at this point, I'm trying to cut corners and save time, but for the arched doors, I want arched doorways. I'm going to go ahead and 3D print those. Printing these little flat arched doorways won't take long at all. So I'm fine doing that. I didn't want to 3D print columns like this. It just takes too long. But printing a little column, or I'm sorry, a little archway, not a big deal. So up next, I will cut the piece for the top, get it glued on, and then I'll start 3D printing the archways so I can use them, put them in place and use them as a template for how to cut the foam away. I found this scrap piece, which is perfect. It's bigger than the top, so I don't have to trim that much. Plus it also has one flat edge here, so I've set my Proxxon to the right width, and because it's square, I'll just run this through 2 ways and it should be fine. It took me about not even 15 minutes to design this little doorway in Tinkercad. It's even got the grooves for the stones in there, and then I put a little capstone or keystone right here. It's very thin. I printed all 4 at once on the table. That took about 12 minutes. So in less than half an hour, I have 4 doorways ready to go. And as you can see, they'll just go on here like this. What I'll do is I'll trace with a blade around the doorway, and then I'll cut out the foam first and then go back and cut the cardboard on the back side. All right, the columns are painted black. The mausoleum is painted black. Time to add the gray graphite. It's a very dark gray, and then I'll use a lighter gray and then highlights to go around the edging. Before I go any further on the mausoleum, I want to go ahead and cut out the hole for where this arched doorway will go. So I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm going to use a pen here and just trace around the inner edge. Okay. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a nice blue line there. And then what I'll do is I'll take my blade and I'm just going to really carefully make a cut here. All right, the doors are glued on. I gave the green a little extra, although I'll probably do some touch-ups in a little while. I trimmed the bases, painted inside the doorways black. It's getting there. Here's the green dome that will go on top. I'm gonna have some bands going across it in an X from opposite corners. Now, one of the things, I wanted to put something on top of these columns. And this is one of the reasons I absolutely love having my 3D printer. It's because when I can't find something that I really like for this, either at the craft store or in my junk box or something like that, with a 3D printer, I can go to town. I can make whatever is in my mind or find it. In this case, I wanted something decorative, but not super fancy. And so I went out to Tinkercad, which is the CAD application that I use for 3D modeling, and there's a community shapes section where people upload little designs that they've made. And I just looked through those and I found this little thing right here. It's just like a little sphere on top of a base. And I just printed out 4 of them real quick. Took about 2 minutes. These will be glued on the 4 corners. They're not overly complicated, very simple, but they just give something to the 4 corners that it needs. But again, it's one of the nice things about having a 3D printer. Now, I mentioned in one of my very early videos, I think maybe even the first video, that if you don't have a 3D printer, you should probably check with your local public library, because I'm finding that a lot of public libraries these days are buying 3D printers and making them available to the public. So if you have a library card, a membership at a local library, public library, it's worth checking out. For instance, where I live here in Atlanta, the nearest public library has 2 3D printers, and they work like you sign up for a small time slot, like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And if you need to be trained on it, they actually have somebody there apparently who will train you on how to use it. So again, if you don't have a 3D printer, definitely worth checking out your local library. So to get back to it, here are the 4 little nubs that I have painted. I'm probably going to go ahead and glue them on, and then I'll decide if I want to paint them. That is it for the columns. I'm done with the columns. Now I'm going to address this and the banding, and I think that will be it. Before I glue the dome on top, just before this segment, you saw me soldering up this little circuit. This little object right here just holds 2 coin batteries, 3 volts basically, And I just took 4 green LEDs and soldered them in parallel with this to a piece of junk perf board that I had. I'm going to glue the piece of perf board in as close to the center as possible, just so all 4 LEDs can reach equidistant to their various doors. Hot glue will not bother this circuit, so you can put a bunch on there if you don't want it to come out. I'm just gonna press it down, give it a good minute to cool. As you can see, that it's glued in the bottom. I've got all the 4 LEDs with a little tape to secure the 2 wires together. This will involve some cable management, no big deal. I'm just gonna have to route them where they go. See, they sort of fall in place. So this one will go here, this one will go here, this one here, and that one there. Just put it right there. And then I'm gonna stick it close to the bottom where I can reach it easy and flip the power on, right like that. There we go. And just test it that they're still on. Yep. All right, so that's secure. So basically the idea is that I'll put the LEDs right behind the door, just like that. So there's this green glow coming down. Here is the final mausoleum. You may notice the light is a little diffused now, and that's because I put a big old bead of hot glue on top of the LED, and it's kind of hard to tell in this video, but trust me, it's much better than it was. It was just a big round circle, and now the light goes in and a little deeper into the door. Just looks a lot better. The dome has been glued on, and I painted these little nubs black, but if you'll notice, I put just a little green dot on the ends there, the tips, just to sort of pull it together. I am loving this thing. It's very, I like it. Hopefully my fellow Frostgrave players at Gen Con will like it just as much. This will be the centerpiece for the mausoleum. And that is the McCullough Mausoleum. Try saying that a few times fast. Turned out really nice. I like the color scheme. I love the green lights underneath it. It's just a very, very nice piece that is going to make a perfect centerpiece for my Frostgrave game at Gen Con next week. Anyway, if you decide to attempt to make a mausoleum, I would love to see a picture of it. Please take a photo, share it, share a link in the comments, and let me see what your take looks like. Anyway, I hope you like it. I definitely enjoyed making it. This was another speed build. I think total time on this was about less than 5 hours, which is pretty good. Considering that I had some 3D printed components in it, the archways and the little nubs on the end here. But didn't take very long. Normally something like this would probably take me 10 or more hours, but I cut some corners by using the cardboard box instead of chipboard, and painted everything up separately. I think I'm going to be doing that from now on. It just saves a lot of grief. Anyway, hope to see you in the next episode. I'm going to head off to Gen Con. I'll hopefully have some great videos to share with you guys when I get back. See you in the next episode.